Well, welcome back to the Pastors Podcast. Pastor Scott here with Steph Moss.
Hi, guys.
And joining us from Southeast Asia are Craig and Lisa. Hi, Craig and Lisa.
Hey, great to see you guys.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Thank you so much for, well, I was going to say getting up early, but it's not too early for you.
Not too early.
Not. It's morning, beautiful morning here.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. And I'm really excited to get to talk with you, just to give a little bit of an update to our church family on what the Lord's been doing, how he's been working. I know that there's been a lot going on. I feel like we've been talking about you in our church family a number of times over the last few months, probably, right, Steph? And I know there's just a lot of curiosity as to how you're doing, how the ministry's doing. But maybe before we dive into all of that, for those that maybe are less familiar, maybe just a ministry recap over the last year, or if a year is like too much, maybe 6 months. I know a lot's been happening. So could you just give us an overview before we kind of dive in a little bit?
Absolutely. I'll start and then Craig can finish because our roles have kind of separated in a little bit in the last 6 months to a year. So currently for me, I'm leading Team Hope. So our former ministry director is getting married. And so she's relocated to US. So I'm back leading this time, taking Craig's job, really, and leading Team Hope. So that's been a big, just onboarding for me and learning curve. And prior
you were
to
part
this,
of Team Hope previously.
25
right?
years.
An integral, for a long time.
Yes, I think the difference is that that when we came back after COVID, we were taking on mentoring of like the newest couples on the team, and Craig was still doing the farm. I was still doing health, and then we were doing all the training, team training, and OJT, which is our intern 1 year training in MWork. And so we were predominantly doing that. So now kind of moved back into that more official role. So in the last 6 months, it's been exciting to see some new growth in terms of people being in the Word, like something we've been praying for years. God is really moving that way. And then we've also had a revision of the challenges with the farm that you guys remember during COVID.
Yeah.
So it's been a really rough season with that. And then, of course, we had a major earthquake, 7.4 earthquake that caused a lot of damage, particularly in our coastal areas and in the city, caused a lot of trauma for a lot of people. And we're just so grateful for the ways that you guys have answered that. A lot of the infrastructure needs and some of the personal needs. So that's my.
I mean, we're at the end of February now. How long ago was that now?
It was
Early October.
I think so. I think it was October.
October, November.
Yeah.
7.2 earthquake.
Yeah. It was rough. It was scary. I was actually just as a short note is that I was coming out of grocery shopping at a mall. That's where we shop here. And so I had just gotten to the keys to be getting in my car, and it hit, and the giant, street lights were bouncing, like completely bouncing back and forth. And I was like, well, I'm in the safest place, and I am a Californian, so I do understand earthquakes. I just stayed in my car, but it was kind of like a movie because we're right by the water at that place. So people started panicking and running through the streets, looking for tsunamis. And so literally people running through the streets, driving the wrong direction. People were injured from the chaos. So it was something. It was pretty intense. And definitely shaken up. I think I was hit on the way home because people were driving the wrong direction. But I was like, I'm just staying in my car. I just want to get home. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so Craig, so you did not step back into Team Hope.
Lisa is very gracious to me. She took on the role of team leader. I love that role. I had it for a couple of decades. We were the pioneer work and grew it up and led the large development of it. But I was ready for a more global role. Kind of pulling away from the day-to-day of governance and finances and all that stuff that we all love in ministry. We love people, not so much having the governance, but that's important.
Craig, are you reading my mail from this morning? I was like sitting at my desk, being like, oh, nobody in seminary told me this was part of the job.
Exactly.
Yes.
Don't you wish they trained you that in seminary? Had to do a budget? how to deal with messy people.
That's right.
Well, you had a good book on that.
That's right.
Yeah. So our role has been the last few years is strategic thinking throughout our organization, and so I've been engaged the last 4 or 5 months in focusing on how to open up new fields. So I'm visiting a lot of 3 or 4 countries here in Southeast Asia. Actually, next week I'm heading to Spain. We're opening up work with North Africans in Spain. So I'm helping survey fields, assessing. That's part of my role now, is think strategically, how to engage well, how to how to listen well first before you jump in, how to listen where the Spirit's moving, how things are happening. Just do good before you, like I said, before you strategize, you got to listen and notice first. And that's, we in ministry, we want to jump in and start ministry right away. And there's an important part of listening and noticing and, assessing before you engage. So that's my goal. And the mission is to slow down. So the slower you start, the faster it goes later. So that's one of our roles. And then we're trying to do a lot of helping, mentoring people around the globe, just calling them. I called, our Romania team last week and spent a couple hours just helping them innovate and how to listen well to local pastors, how to work well with them, build empathy with local ministries so that you can engage well. So do a lot of that. It's a really,
lot of calls. Craig is calling a lot of countries.
Yeah. So it's kind of an ambiguous role, whatever. There's a lot of ways I can explain it, but it's just helping people listen well and then think strategically how to ideate later on in the process.
Are those primarily cross-cultural workers that you're training? Every one of them are. That's what it is. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Or we're all cross-cultural workers. Some work with existing small, like in Romania or other countries where it's more open. We work with some existing churches that are small, trying to help them grow. And other places where they're unreached, there is no church, helping them to, again, not come in with a plan or program until you engage well. I'm working with the team in Georgia, not the state, but the country, how to listen well to them. So having to do cultural ethnographies and cultural studies, cultural exegesis first before you kind of engage in ministry. So you want to listen well, making sure that. So my job is to help people slow down, pull back, listen.
Do you find that particularly challenging with new, young, cross-cultural workers?
That have their direction set?
That was me. I came with a passion, and a vision. I knew how I was going to fix things. And that's part of our drive, our love for Jesus and love for people. We just want to bring transformation right away.
Right.
But we have to pull out of our perspective of how things work in West LA and how do they work in a rural area in Central Asia. It's very different. And so we have to, before we come in with the program, come back and listen. And there's steps of I just wrote a paper, 10 steps of how to engage the unreached. And they don't talk about ideas until step 7. So it's a lot of learning and listening. There's programs we go through. So that's another role that we do with our organization, is how to engage, how to plant churches in a very locally appropriate contextual way.
I will say that 25 years of ministry for Craig, writing, training for our team, and developing that, this paper, among other papers where he's written for the organization, has been an opportunity to collate all those thoughts and kind of streamline them. I said it should be a book, but like he's really put together all of that experience and expertise and like perspective. And so I just feel like he's really in his like gifting, and it's real. That part is just really cool because I'm more the analyst. So he has the ideas. And then if I need to develop a tool to survey or something like that, I can do that. But it's just been really fun to see the way that God has gifted him with experience all these years, and now he's being able to use that to mentor and develop the right tools for cross-cultural workers. So it's pretty cool.
She's very kind to me.
I would love to see what you developed.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Craig can send that to you for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Craig, we're doing this cohort with just on the mission of God, both globally and locally across the world, and with like 60 people in our church right now are going through this. Yeah. It's it's been so exciting, and like looking at, I mean, it's just so similar to even what you're describing. Looking at 10 steps in engaging, particularly when you're talking about engaging the unreached.
Yes.
I mean, we want to be thinking that way globally. that's also a lot of our neighbors here in West LA.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And so, I resonate because as you talk about the challenge of slowing people down along the way, I have this picture of people going like as slow as they think they can, and then you're like, oh no, slower. And they're like, I can't move it. I can't go any slower, because I think it's not just slower than we're going. It's almost slower than we can imagine.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
In really understanding and knowing people.
It's true. You got to listen and notice well.
Yeah. If you're running, you can't see what's happening all around you. You're just looking at that one thing. You're not paying attention to anything else.
Yeah. I love that visual.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we're actually, I think, encouraging people to actually be active and engaged, which sounds like, okay, speed up, do more. But I think the slowness you're talking about is relational, right? If you're actually slowing down and looking next to you, you're slowing down long enough to talk to your neighbor, talk to the person that you're checking out with, or making time to connect and listen well. And that takes time and effort and intention, and slowing down and opening up your schedule and your space and your energy for... Yeah, it's not always like we are saying go and do and engage more, but it's in this different way. That's
the biggest question often in my calls are I try to encourage people to discern what are the vulnerabilities of the unreached around you. What are their how are they at risk? What are their vulnerabilities? And so they ask me, well, how do I do that? And the first question is, you build relationships.
That's the question that comes to my head, Craig.
Yes, I know.
So I'm sorry. What did you say? I spoke over your answer.
He had his eye on the goal. He forgot.
So, I mean, in our environment, poverty is obvious. You can see it. But that doesn't necessarily say that's the issue that they're really dealing with at an existential level. They may perceive what the vulnerabilities are, but the first step of discerning vulnerability is building relationships. Because in the relationships, people will reveal where they're at risk. It's we can do the demographics, we can do the surveys, but it's really through building relationship with the community, and through the relationships, people have trust. They share what their vulnerabilities are in the relationship. Then, as you're listening, then you engage. And the problem is, well, the struggle we have is there are some. Okay, there's a town here that has very poor water. We can go in and build wells. But how do you know 10 years down the road they're going to use those wells? Because we can bring infrastructure in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a felt need. They feel they own it. So you go in and build relationships, you learn trust, then you determine the issues behind the lack of water. So just answering the issue of the water doesn't resolve the issues behind why there is no water. It could be clan conflict, it could be dependence on the infrastructure of government, it could be people waiting for someone. It could be a lot of issues they need to deal with. So if you just bring in water without dealing with the issues behind it, you don't bring transformation. So that's why moving slow in the community of West LA is building relationships with the neighbors, understanding what their vulnerabilities are, what's the issues behind why they're at risk. Then you deal with that, not necessarily what you see up front. That brings transformation. And so we come in on the field with unreached, and we see the need. We want to fix things because we see a need. But that doesn't always fix the issues behind the need, and that's where transformation happens. That's where Jesus can come in and bring wholeness and spiritual transformation, but also economic and relational and environmental. There's a lot of deeper issues that have to be dealt with, that are dealt with in the deeper issues.
It's interesting. I feel like the temptation to skip over that, even in my own heart, I feel like you're putting your finger on a deep humility as well, that trusts that you might know better what your vulnerabilities are than I do, than my even maybe trained eyes can see that on the ground. I can see certain things, but I can't understand those dynamics, and I think that's. I think that also hits up against for us, a culture of expertise, right? A culture that values knowledge and expertise, that it assumes that those who study this the longest might probably know better than those who are living it.
And we struggled with that, early on the field. We thought we knew. Like, I was like, I have a master's in public health. I know how to assess what the needs are, but I wasn't listening well, and it transformed when I shifted to listening.
Yeah. The skill sets are important because that helps you ideate down the road.
Absolutely.
But you don't let that blind you in the very first step always has to be gathering empathy. How do you gather empathy? How do you gain understanding? And that's the issue that we often skip to get to our program. So if we can slow down, gather empathy from our community, our neighbors, get understanding, and there's steps that we can do to do that, then we learn to ideate with them. Okay, how do we resolve the issues that you see, that you feel, and then we can move forward. And that's the humility part you talked about. You cannot gather empathy with arrogance. You have to be humble.
And even like part of like we developed something this last year for our organization that's called 3 Questions in a Story. And you're asking 3 questions like at the beginning of the year, you're doing a mid-year assessment, and end of the year evaluation, and then you have a story of transformation. It's called the most significant change story. And I think that last piece, the most significant change story, part of the training is where we've shared is that it's not actually only you defining what transformation is for that person, but you are doing that in community. If that person was sitting right next to you, that community member that's from an unreached people group, and they talk about transformation, it should be, you could share that story right with them by your side because they would validate that. And so sometimes we create the narratives and stories of what transformation looks like. But if you talk to someone who's in one of your communities and you're saying, what is like a full and whole life look like? What would transformation look like in your neighborhood, in your mosque, in your temple, in your school, in your soccer team, whatever? And if you ask them that and they begin to share, you also learn what their values are, where transformation is needed. And then as you begin to see transformation.
How Nancy the spider got his long, spindly legs.
That was very interesting.
That is hilarious.
The transformation of his spidery legs.
Spidery legs.
That's great.
But anyway, I just think that that part of like what Craig's saying is that we also listen to what they are longing for, what wholeness looks like for them, because that is giving us a clue as to what is broken, what feels broken to them as well. And then when transformation happens and they give a testimony of what has shifted, we're also learning like how the gospel and how our presence is bringing something different into their life. So
that's so good. Yeah. Okay, so the question I have is, what organization do we need to join to be mentored by you, Craig? How do we?
I literally sitting here like,
how do I
get onto his list of people to be mentored as I'm doing everything you're talking about right now for our community center?
We're trying.
Listening and the questions. And so this is,
I love that so much.
This is so providential.
About 30 seconds.
No.
I don't think so.
You can have Craig come and share at your cohort.
We're gonna follow up, Craig. I think we and part of it is because I think in a lot of ways we're on the same page philosophically, theologically. But you've been doing this for so long and seen it both in your context and are seeing it in all these various contexts across the world. I think that there's I feel like we are still exploring what the application of those principles looks like in West LA, and honestly in a West LA that is like constantly changing. That's a very different place from the place we planted our church in 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very different place than we were in 10 years ago. And so we're even the communities that we're trying to reach there's a lot of knowledge that we just don't have.
Yeah. So actually, that's what I tell our missionaries who've been on the field for 20 years. Don't think because you have 20 years experience that you know the answers, because it's very transitional. It's very fluid. Things change. You go back and meet constantly. There's 3 things I say to people. You got to be curious, pursue creativity, and suspend judgment. On all 3 areas. You got to constantly be curious daily about the environment you're in, the relationship you're in. Don't think you know how to go in and you're satisfied with the structure, because things change. Suspend judgment, because we tend to we judge people on cultural aspect that we have a bias toward. So maybe they're doing things differently because of a different value. So suspend judgment, try to learn what is the value that drives them, and then be creative. I'm not necessarily a creative person, so I have to lean into that, force myself to pursue creativity, and that then you're willing to not just have the absolute answers that you hold, but work with the others. That's where group think really does help in being creative. But it's constantly learning.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel like the illustration, just as you talk, you haven't named it, but I mean, you're so describing Jesus. Like, I just think, you talk about how his patience, his curiosity, he already knows the answer, but he still sits there and asks,
he still asks the questions.
He's asking questions, getting to the depth and the heart of the issue, the empathy that you spoke of. I mean, just instantly choking up, just thinking about that we are this kind of very heady culture of, well, I have the solution, I have the knowledge, I have the resources. And so if I can just go fix it, it's an instant fix.
Right.
And God did some of those things too, right? We're like instantly meeting the need, but there was always, like you said, you're just kind of missing more to the story. You're missing the context, the heart, and some of the other actual kind of deeper stuff going on. And I think that's exactly what, a lot of times missions is missing, is that everything you just named, the relational, and Jesus did it so well. And
Jesus always invited participation. It wasn't only like it's just him. He always invited their participation. They're identifying their needs. They have to sometimes do something, take some kind of action to like step into what faith looks like in Christ. And so it's not just one, it's this collaborative commitment to like bring wholeness, right? To bring transformation, to bring salvation. This is done in this collaborative communication with Jesus, which is how Jesus is, right? Relational.
I remember in seminary, professor telling me, okay, who was Jesus always mad at? And he looked at the classroom, he says, he was mad at you. We're all seminary students, right? We're going into ministry. Who was Jesus always mad at? It was the leaders of ministry. It was the Sadducees and Pharisees. That's who he called the vipers and the snakes. But everyone else, the woman at the well, the prostitute, the fair, the broken, the leper, that's who he was empathetic. He asked questions for them. It was those who were pious and holy and living a structured life that excluded grace, excluded mercy. Those that received his anger. But those who are the vulnerable, the at risk, those he pursued creativity. He was curious. He suspended his judgment. He wanted to listen. And that's how he brought transformation. It doesn't change the absolute value of truth, but he tried to get into them to understand what their needs are.
Yeah. Oh, that's so helpful. Okay. I could do this for 2 more hours. I just want to geek out. I just want to have this conversation.
I love talking to you guys.
But I do. But I want to change gears a little bit and ask a little bit more, just both personally and ministry wise, about like things on the ground there. First of all, the ministry's been through a lot of transitions, a lot of needs. How's the team doing? How are things on the ground for you?
The team definitely has like transition fatigue for sure. Because we had 3 people that were officer in charge while Amy was on home service. And so that's been very difficult for them. And systems keep shifting, right? Everyone does something different. So I think what we're trying to do is build some stability and listen to people's stories again and again. Like what does like the new season of leadership for this team look like into the future? So there's been a lot of listening, I think.
The soul care retreat.
Yeah, we had a soul care retreat in Thailand in January. And so that was for all of Asia. And so there's something for cross-cultural workers called Breathe for families, Traction for men, and Ava for women. And it's just for cross-cultural workers. And it has like Bible teaching. Really, it's addressing deeper soul issues. And then it has counseling and like life coaching and all kinds of stuff like that. So Craig and another field leader from Japan really had a vision to bring that to Asia. So the leader of Catalyst, who is in Ventura, he is an MK. And so he brought that to all of our folks. And that, I think, had such a transformative impact on our team to just understand like, we can't be, we know it, right? But we can't be serving unless we're healthy, unless we're taking time to really like mourn the things that have been really hard and work through the deeper issues, and know that we have to be so connected to Jesus, otherwise we can't really move forward. Otherwise, none of that is going to bring fruit. And so I think that was really powerful.
Very healing.
Yeah, it was very healing for our teammates.
Praise God.
And yeah, things on the ground, ministry-wise, have been, with the farm, particularly challenging, with the earthquake. Kind of like when we chatted with you guys during COVID, there was that conversation. If there's a crisis, what's the triangle of crisis? It's like,
if there's a presence of the witness, and then there's a cataclysmic crisis, and then there's the word of God, those three things are there. You see movements to Jesus historically.
Yeah.
And so it's, which we've started to see since COVID, started to see those
Saw that
three
in
things.
COVID. And then even with the earthquake, like all of our team talked about right away, like on campus, all of the students that were having trauma and didn't know how, having like panic attacks, like a truck moving by made you think there was another earthquake. And then the devastation in our coastal communities with homes being broken and all their small, belongings being broken. Like that was an opportunity for our team to immediately like realize this is where we need to be. We need to be taking immediate action. If you wait too long, you've lost your opportunity in a crisis, right? So our team has been incredible to just be present and work through some of those traumas and difficulties with our team.
So we're seeing new Bible studies on campus just the last 4 months.
Yes.
Wow.
It's been so cool.
Even the strict followers of their faith are opening up to our team members, and they're been really intentional. And we're starting to see studies never thought would happen with students on university. It's starting to happen. People that tend to be most resistant are opening up now. And in the fishing village across the bay that we've had a presence for a while, we're seeing a movement. We're seeing 5 Bible studies start in this fishing village, and we're seeing whole movements of these young men, young to me, in their 30s,
40s,
starting coming to faith and starting Bible studies with their families. It's just something that just so beautiful to see, and to see these wives of these men who wanted studies, and now instead of having just the wives separate, now we're having families come together and having a movement.
And this is what I loved about that. This is the creativity, is that because the wives were in a study with the women on our team in the coastal community, and our team said, what is our vision is families of faith, right? So that whole families would come to faith, and that would birth other families of faith. So the disciple is family discipleship, not just individual. And so one of the hardest decisions was all those wives of the fishermen, as the fishermen started coming to Christ, is they said, we're going to stop this study. And like, who does that, right? But I just felt there was such discernment. They said, you need to go home and talk to your husband and let him lead a family study. Because the goal is to have like groups of people that are like have some commonality. And so if you have like a husband that's come to Christ and his wife in a separate study, we're like, you go join your husband, and then you find more family members that will join your study. So the whole idea of replication is like you have these cohorts. And so we realized, our team realized in that community that by having the women separate, you're missing the whole point of replication, right? Where if you have them split up and go back to their husbands who are already in a study, then the chance of replication happening at multiple levels through villages, through clan lines, is more of a possibility. So it's just kind of taken off. And there's been multi-generation studies. So where a study, like someone in that study comes to faith, and then he starts a new study with like his other members. So, I mean, we've never seen something like this. Is what we've been praying for forever. And I think
we've seen glimpses of it over the years.
We've had,
but it hasn't carried on. But now we're starting to see it again. So it's first time in this village.
So that's been super cool. Yeah.
That's great.
So both really challenging,
right,
and fruitful in some unique ways because of
we find that, right, when it's sometimes when the crisis happens, that's when we see people yearning for transformation, and they're more open during moments of crisis.
Can I just share one little comment too on that? Is that one thing I loved meeting with our coastal community team? They were saying that because of all this growth, they're just trying to figure out what to do each day. And we have a term on our team called lingering, intentional lingering, where you go just hang out with people. So they say in the afternoon when they're going to go out in the community, they'll have like a Bible study either in their pocket or bag, or like Alan, one of our teammates, he just says he'll memorize a number of stories and be ready. And then they'll pray before they walk out the door of our center, of our coastal center. We're just like, okay, God, we're going to go linger, show us who we need to be with. And they may go to like, a lot of people are hanging out in a coastal village, so they'll go and sit and maybe get a snack and just wait. And then often, because it's interesting, they said one of the biggest things that the community member said is sometimes you visit us only when you have a program or an activity, but when you come to visit us just to visit us, then we know we're close. And so when they come and they have intentional lingering, they'll wait, and then often someone there will be like, oh, we should really do that study again. And then they'll be like, oh, you want to do it now? So it's like this partnership with the Holy Spirit of like intentionally listening and being prepared, like not just being like, we'll see what happens, but being prepared, And so I think that was really powerful for me to listen to my Asian colleagues who had kind of seen so much growth. They're like, we just need to know where God wants us to go, because the growth is happening so quick. And so that was just a beautiful, I think, way that they were intentionally listening to the Holy Spirit.
That's really sweet.
That's so powerful. That lingering, that's another slow paced, just
right.
It's not a measurable ministry, guys. Like, I feel like a lot of times when we think about missions, you're like, no, you have to do something.
Yes.
Like, how many tracks did you pass out? How many people did you talk to? It's like, I lingered for half a day and,
Yes.
no, that is sometimes like, trust. And even that leaning in on and trusting the Holy Spirit and saying like, I'm going to be a part of this community and not just for this programmatic exchange. That's so countercultural, so beautiful, and so necessary. Just so, I love it. Yeah. Wow.
So in the midst of all this going on, all this change, all the transition and stuff like that, how are the two of you doing? I mean, it's been, I don't know if that's fair to ask in this context, but I know we've been wondering, I know that are people that are just praying for you. I know this has been a lot, not just for the team, but for you guys. And I know there have been a lot of transitions over the last year, 2 years. I mean, we're praising the Lord for in some sense, some answered prayers for health and the fact that you guys can be
absolutely
there.
Yes.
But at the same time, that doesn't make means everything's easy.
Well, I'd say I'm more intentional because of my history of my heart, which is doing great. But I'm more intentional, make sure I get good sleep at night. I'm gonna throw her under the bus. Lisa is not being good about.
I'm tired.
All right, pray for Lisa's sleep.
Okay.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, she's up a late
a lot. Yeah.
Just doing a lot of catch up for the team, a lot of the governance stuff, and then the structural stuff, and then we have this crisis with the farm. Someone's claiming for 10 years now this is their land, and they're coming back again. So
the last month has been really rough with that again.
So doing a lot of letters to the court case and trying to move things forward without bringing shame, without conflict, how to gently move forward. So Lisa's been handling that well. It just takes a lot of hours.
Yeah, it's just taking a lot of time. And then my dad, who's 85, almost 86, lives with us. And so, but I have a great team with 24-hour care. So I have different folks that are watching him and taking care of him. So, so that's good. And with, I think that I have high expectations. We always do, right, of ourselves and how we're supposed to do all these things. And I'm just trying to figure out how to lower my expectations of myself. Of like, I'm just a person, and the world, it's kind of that the world does not depend on me to be successful. Like I'm just a piece of what God has kind of placed me here, but I still have to like embody that, like live that out, because I don't get enough rest and have a hard time like finding rest. It's been really a challenge for me. So thanks for asking.
No, absolutely.
But we're doing well. Yeah.
Otherwise we're doing well.
Yeah, we're a good team. I do miss her because now she's team leader. We used to work together.
I know. We both were strategy. So there are days where I'm doing so much admin and finance. I was like, to go back to like that super creative space of like thinking and dreaming and creating materials. But that time will come back again. Just this is not the time, saying yes to this with our Asia leadership, asking me to step in. I just realized this is really important. And we care so much about the team, of course, so that we need to do that. We do that. Yeah.
Well, we're particularly thankful for that sacrifice. I think it's not only more difficult, not as fun, and like not as like, I don't know, even exciting at the end of the day.
Right.
Right. Like you look back and you're like, this was really needed and everything falls apart without it. But like, this doesn't make for a fun story. Even in your own heart and in your own head, right?
Yeah, Excel sheets don't do well in prayer letters.
They don't. But we're so
Excel sheet.
That's right. But we're so thankful for that sacrifice and for your willingness and for both of you. And I appreciate you sharing it because I think it is a way that we can come alongside you and pray for rest, pray for your support, I think that a lot of our people will recognize the importance and the centrality of that kind of role. And I mean, I would assume that a part of why you recognize it is because you can strategize and dream all you want, but without the practice to put it there into place, like you're just spinning wheels, right? And so even in a priority sense, it's even more necessary on the ground. So thankful for that.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask, you kind of touched on it in the beginning, but we do have a lot of new people at our church that are still kind of getting to know all of our partners. And you've mentioned fields and farms and a little bit of mentioned kind of public health. But I just was curious, are you still doing kind of the once a year medical clinics? Are you still doing this kind of summer tutoring programs? Just kind of touching on a few of the different things that you do and how are those going? Are you doing those in 2024? And just curious.
That's great. I would say,
we'll give a big summary first.
Yeah. So kind of the areas that we work in is we have organic development farm, and that is basically to train the indigenous communities, particularly M communities, where we are in the region, like multiple regions. Some people come from 2 hours away, and they can come on the farm and they can look at what organic farming, reforestation, hillside terracing looks like. And then we also have something called Food Always in the Home, Faith Gardens, and that is rotational cropping on small plots of land. So you have people that have large amounts of land that are looking to restore the land and farm organically, but also people that just need to feed their families. And so we have that, and that continues to be amazing. Just this last week, we had a huge goat training with people learning how to, give injections and take care of their goats. So there's the farm, and then our farm is what we call a resource to all of our other communities. So we have something called, our names are MAPA community, BAPA community, and UMI community, and the campus. And so the farm agri-resource, like resources and trains in all of those communities. And then we have the campus work, and that's been incredible, right? And so we've had more people joining the team. We have one family. Well, we actually have 3 families in language school right now, but 2 are coming to the campus. So I feel like that's going to expand. And so we do, we have a scholarship program. We do tutorials. We do mentoring, coaching, values, seminars, computer center. So it's just it's the largest government public university in our area. Very well recognized. And so then in the early days, the campus students those were the connections that we followed to start all of the other new ministry sites that we have. So we took those, and that was the intention. People are coming from all over the island to come here. And so then we follow those connections back. And so we have 3 communities based off of that. And we do these intensive summer tutorials with like 300, and I think this last year was like 350 students. And then students come for like 6 weeks. They're all there all day. And then we have a center that they're visiting constantly. And so that is one of our most powerful resources, is our student center on campus. And then we have 3 village communities, a coastal community, a very strict community near our farm that's been very resistant over the years. And then another M community right near our university. So that's anything to add to that, Craig?
Well, the medical.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Medical. So yes. Hello. I'm the medical person. Yes. So we paused medical.
You're a good team leader, thinking about it. I mean, everybody else.
We paused medicals during COVID because people got very anxious about large gatherings. However, we are hoping this October that we may have our first medical, and we just actually had two doctors from Ukraine that are now living in Germany. Their daughter is serving with us for a year. They just came out and they did medical checkups for all of our scholars in all of our areas, which is like 35 to 40 scholars. But we're hoping to do something actually in October that will be families of our contacts in those communities, and do like not like we used to do like 1,400 people in a week. So we'll probably do more localized ones, but we will finally get back to that. So that's a big part of, so what we call medical is like the farm. It's a resource team, meaning that our medical team resources for all of the areas. And we are hoping to get back to those clinics finally.
Yeah,
finally
and they
in
also
October.
help strategically open up new communities. They help
Yes.
build relationship, build trust. We follow students into a village that we have a relationship with the leaders, the religious leaders, the corporate leaders. And then we go in and offer a medical clinic to show them who we are, to show them the love of Jesus. We pray over every patient. They see a doctor and medications. And so it's a way of showing the tangible love, addresses some significant needs, and then opens doors for future ministry in those villages. And so that's been a powerful, tangible ministry for decades. But like I said, we probably won't do the large ones where we gather 500 people a day for another year or two, because people are still cautious about large gatherings. But we're trying to do more organic, small community ones, but maybe more of those.
Yeah, maybe closer to like 100, 120 per day instead of massive ones. But we are pretty excited for that to start up again finally. Yes.
Yeah. So how could we just continue to partner? What does it look like to continue to partner with you guys? Those of us that know you and those of us that are kind of newly hearing about what you do, what would you like to see, or what is the next kind of year or two of partnership with you guys? Can we come see you at some point?
Actually, okay. So
Am I jumping ahead?
No. This is great. Can I ask an even more specific question? I've got a couple of specific questions. So one is, I want to take that and I want to like zoom down for potential cross-cultural workers. Oh, look at that. Do you see that?
Yes. Well done.
Oh my gosh. I put my thumb up and the Zoom like popped a bubble. I don't know what's going on. This is a new feature to Zoom. I haven't seen this before. Does it?
Yeah,
it didn't do it. No, it's magic. All right.
I have little thumbs. It could be that.
All right. So here's my question. If there's what opportunities of either potential cross-cultural workers or even just partners that want to support the work that you're doing, very short term, medium term, long term, what opportunities exist?
That's a great question. I immediately think of people who have come out for 6 months to a year and just an internship with us on the university. You can use English.
Yeah.
And help assist. We have English TESOL programs. They can help just practice English. They can just be with students. In our farm, we're looking for people to come out for a period of time who want to learn how to do, or we can train them how to do sustainable farming. Okay, I want you to picture this though. Farm is not what you think. You're not Central Valley. This is not a Bakersfield, Fresno farm.
Got it.
This is a jungle that has a little flat land and mostly hills, and it's hot. But we're trying to do restorative farming techniques, not just slash and burn. So it's a very different environment. So you don't have many of those guys in West LA, but
no, we don't.
Has to be someone who wants like the extreme adventure jungle kind of thing.
Yeah. And then people coming short term, if they can help with some of our medical projects.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There's other ways. It's kind of hard to come out for just 2 weeks because without the language. So
Right.
that's more challenge.
That's the biggest
Unless we have
challenge,
an existing medical program or on campus where they can help with an existing program. Our summer tutorial programs, they can come in.
That's 6 weeks of intense English and math teaching.
Yeah. That'd be a significant gift. If you guys want to come out and just, encourage us for a week and,
if you want to come out and just see the work, right? Like visit our areas. Like that's something that you could do. Like we have a family that just was starting language, but they actually hadn't been here. So spent a week kind of taking them around and hearing people's stories, visiting some of the farms of the women who are, doing their own like backyard garden farms, and hearing like what transformation looks like for those people. That could be a powerful opportunity, to come and just visit and see what that's like, and and then knowing your community at Cornerstone allows you to be like, oh, I think that this could be a really good fit for, this person, or like, this is a way that we can partner. That might help you be able to identify that if you guys come out and see it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there's an invitation there for that.
Awesome.
For
Yay.
sure.
That's what I was wondering.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then maybe secondarily, how can we be praying for the ministry and the team right now? I know you've mentioned a lot of different things going on, but as we're coming alongside you and, supporting you in that way, what might that look like?
I would say one area is for these growing studies in the coastal village is so interesting, because there was so much of a thrill when we had our annual planning in November with the team of like what God was doing through these studies. And then two young women who have been believers for a bit of time also want to be baptized. And all of that like excitement happened. And then there was like the two girls, there was like a death in the family. There was like hospitalization for their child, like everything kind of, as soon as they said they want to be baptized, like chaos happened, right? Oh. And then with the studies, similar chaos happened. And so they're still going, but just, I think for our team to be able to fully explain like the spiritual battle involved in stepping toward Jesus. So just praying that those studies keep growing and flourishing, but also that there's maturity of understanding what it looks like to follow Jesus in truly a war zone, a spiritual war zone, right? Where every time there's a step forward, if you're really making headway in a place that has been very oppressed spiritually, there's going to be a fight. And so we're seeing a lot of that. So just praying for maturity and consistency and equipping of our teammates to come alongside and not have people be like, oh, I'm stepping out because this is too hard, which often people who come to faith step away and then come back. So just pray for really great replication and maturity in navigating the persecution that comes with that. There has been some persecution. Also just pray for like the farm issue. It's just, it takes like such, you need to be like persistent, but you also don't want to cause chaos, because that can come back and
the security of the farm, this clan that's trying to take the land away.
It can actually be dangerous. Yeah. Like if there's like a direct conflict, then in our area, that'll just end up with someone shooting someone. And so there's been like such a need for wisdom in the way that we progress. So please pray for that.
You pray for the team. Even some of our team members, it's an intense place to do ministry. A lot of deep poverty every day. Yeah. So even a couple of our team members are leaning into online counseling. They realize they need to deal with what it's like to live in oppression and not have to carry it all the time.
Yeah.
So there's our team is doing well, but they're recognizing they need more care than we can provide. So they're, online counseling has been a gift for that. But that's just a regular struggle for. It's hard for missionaries to admit we have weaknesses, right? So it's powerful that they're admitting it and they recognize it, pursuing it. But it's still, it's a heavy place to work.
Yeah, and I think we have like 2 and 3 year interns that we have shifted. Like now, when they go back to the U.S., that we don't just have a debrief; they actually have they are required to do a trauma debrief, because of the level of trauma and death and oppression and brokenness that they experience. It is carried by them. And it's hard for them to recover from just doing ministry here. Yeah. So definitely praying for that. And our long-termers, they're just carrying that for years, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe not unrelatedly then, how can we be praying for the two of you beyond rest? So rest is number one.
Rest for sure.
Thank you.
Maybe you can think something.
I always pray. We actually are in a good space, but we want to go any deeper in our relationship with each other and with Jesus. So just pray that continues to thrive. We do see a lot of workers in the field. They get on the field. They're married 30 years, and they tend to just become partners, work partners, and the beauty of the relationship dwindles because of all the hard work around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be intentional that doesn't happen to us.
That's right.
And just to be in the Word and abiding in Jesus on a regular basis. We can wake up running. So to pull back and have that regular abiding, it's really important.
Yeah. And I think because we're grieving a little bit, not working in partnership. Like when we're doing the strategy world together, that was so fun. And like we would like have our walks and we would brainstorm and talk about everything. And so I felt like we were like, it was like this very energetic partnership because we're both so different. And so we bring different things to the table. And so I miss that. Like sometimes I leave early in the morning, I get home late at night and I'll miss the walk with the dogs. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be home for the walk with the dogs. Yeah. And that's like our favorite time. So yeah, maybe just pray for my ability to, I don't know if it's my decision to protect that time and get home enough for our walks. Cause that's kind of our morning breakfast and our walks together are really the highlights of our time as a couple. So praying for that.
A lot of good deep processing.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
And did you say you guys are going to get some time away with your kids?
Yes, tomorrow we're going on vacation. Yes.
Awesome. We'll be praying that will be a unique refreshment and just a blessing for all of you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that. And I think also I just wanted to thank you so much for the Christmas offering because with the earthquake, it was pretty devastating to like our campus center. So we even ended up having like the upstairs bathroom with the pipes burst and through like a whole thing. That happened recently through the roof. And so just knowing that we can fix all of that. So that has been fixed. We're halfway through the repair of the roof. And then our Coastal Community Center, that is being repaired. It's like half of it was done last week and it's going to be repaired this week. So it's just such a significant answer because these places have people all day long. This is like a place where we kind of our hub of everyone gathering, all of our students and community members. And then we go out and visit them in their dorms or in their families. But those centers are pretty important. And we just want to thank you for that. And also, I don't know if you know, Ramadan is coming up. And so in our community, we realized that one of the coastal communities, there has been such devastation from that there's also not enough food for people. So during this time, our teammate did like a marriage enrichment thing last weekend. We're doing a variety of things, but during that time, there'll be like food packs and some like the Mellowware, like the non-breakable dishes, because people's dishes broke. They all fell off. And so like even just for our family, giving them like 4 plates and Mellowware cups and like a serving bowl. So each of those families in that community will get a food pack and that's thanks to you. So we just want to also just say we're so grateful, but also pray that time of like visiting each of the families during Ramadan would be really powerful. Because this is usually the time that everyone gathers together. It is like the Christmas holiday season in our part of the world. And so when you visit every home, people break fast once the sun sets and you go and bring a little bit of bread and you chat and spend time. People want to talk about spiritual things. So please
more
pray.
Of a spiritual awakening season.
It is. And they believe like there's something on the night of power that their prayers are 10,000 times more powerful on that night. So our team prays all night. So we gather together in the afternoon, we pray until morning, that they would have like visions and dreams of Jesus, that Jesus would reveal himself to them during this like heightened spiritual season for them. And so please pray with us that Jesus would just be preeminent in these communities, that he would be seen and acknowledged for who he is. That would be a powerful prayer. And Thanksgiving to you guys for your partnership in that.
Absolutely. No, we'll be praying for that. And thank you. I mean, honestly, thank you for the privilege. It really is. I think we feel that and recognize that the partnership is such a blessing to us as well. And so we're thankful for the work you're doing and for the opportunity to get to partner in it. So.
Yeah, and that God knew. I mean, I don't even know if I told you guys that it was the exact amount that came through that was extra was the exact amount you guys came back and were like, oh, actually,
we actually need this extra amount. We're like, we're holding that exact amount.
Exact.
I wonder what God wants us to do with it.
Chills and tears at the same time. I was like, God is so cool. And the generosity of the church, like how he uses people to, it's just a beautiful thing. And so I was, I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So grateful. It was overwhelming. In fact, as we shared that with our team that were in the office, when I heard, I just shared that with everyone, and everyone just celebrated. They were just so grateful. So thank you.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time today. Thanks for taking this time out of your vacation prep and time with your kids in the morning. So I hope you get some good breakfast with them. But we really do appreciate the generosity of your time and the work that you're doing. It's such a privilege to partner with you.
Thank you, Steph. Thanks for Scott. Yeah,
good to see you guys.
Absolutely, and thank you all for listening. Please, just want to encourage you to be not just praying in a flippant way, but to committed. That you be praying for these things we've talked about. If there's any other information and more information you'd like about about Craig and Lisa, we'd love to provide it with you and love to see what the Lord does and use forward. So, thanks you all, thanks you guys, and thanks for listening. We'll see you on Sunday.